Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vegas Legal Magazine podcast. I'm Mark Fierro with Vegas Legal Magazine publisher Tyler Morgan. Joining us, Fierro Communications Vice President Jeff Haney. Thank you so much for joining us today. One approach to success is to focus, find your place, that corner that you can call your own. Our guest today has found a really cool niche that I have a feeling will go unrivaled for some time. Chase Carlson is capitalizing on a background in regulated investments, got his law degree, and today helps people claw back investments gone wrong. His main audience, professional athletes, past and present. Chase Carlson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So give us the backstory, because this is the really interesting part of it. Your father was a lawyer,
Yep.
and you decide you're going to go down this path, but it changes.
Yeah, so I got lucky. One of my good friends played in the NFL, and through hanging out with him and his friends, I saw and asked, what are you guys invested in? And the things that they would tell me just made no sense. And I would do a little Google search, and just started to realize that a lot of these things that they were investing in were, either way too risky or completely fraudulent. And upon finishing law school, we ended up picking up these guys as clients, trying to get them their money back, and it's just grown and grown to where now we've done over 30 players in every major sport, entertainers as well.
It sounds like professional athletes may be the only group of people that are worse investors than doctors.
Yes, doctors are notoriously bad investors, and probably athletes are probably number two, unfortunately, yeah.
Doyle Brunson wrote that professional poker players are the worst investors. They're good at the poker table, but besides that, forget about it. He notoriously went partners with another poker player on ventures such as one that was going to find Noah's Ark and make a boatload of money off of that, so to speak. And as you can imagine, it went south. But
how did that possibly go wrong? I don't understand.
The question is, in your view, why do you think professional athletes are drawn to odd, unusual, risky investments as opposed to, the standard blue chip investments mainstream people might look at? Or even beyond that, why don't they just devote, say, 5% of their capital to risky investments, and the rest to say, why do they go all in on these strange investments that go wrong so often?
It's a good question. I think part of it is that they end up in the hands of bad advisors. And so, they're pitched on these bad deals. It's oftentimes that they didn't seek it out, that somebody got their trust and sold them the investment, and also failed to, minimize it to 5% of their portfolio. So what we end up seeing is we have clients where, half their money is in risky private deals. Whereas, like you said, maybe it should be 5% or something like that.
Doesn't like in the NFL, I know the NFL does, like when the rookies come in, they do, the Players Association comes in and they do a whole week of like educating them on, what to and not to do in the NFL. But isn't part of that also, investments and how to protect their money and what not to do with their cash?
Yeah. So the union and the league, they both do educational seminars that does include investments. It's just a lot to digest for a young guy. Their attention spans are pretty short, as most young guys are. And, they don't have the financial background to understand what's going on. They don't understand the amount of risk they're taking on. They oftentimes it's first generational wealth. So they didn't grow up with parents that were making investments. And, they might be geniuses on the field, but when it comes to investing in business, they just don't have the skills.
And they're so easy to get to. Fans come up to them all the time and open the doors. And it would seem, if you were in the business of defrauding people, the last person you would think of would be a 275-pound center that you want coming after you for the rest of your life.
You think so, but
These people that get them, they don't get them with registered securities. You're not talking Fortune 500 stocks or S&P 500. These are almost exclusively private deals, right?
Right. In the last 10 years, I think I've seen 2 cases where athletes sued over registered securities. and dozens and dozens and dozens where it was all unregistered securities.
Are we talking about investment advisors who are engaging in activity that rises to the level of criminal activity, or is it merely terrible business decisions that go south? I mean, and where is the line there? In other words, it seems to me, I mean, you guys are the attorneys, but it seems to me there is a dividing line there somewhere.
So there's a civil and a criminal side to a lot of this stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, so some of them are outright frauds. It's a Ponzi scheme, or they just stole the money, or they said we're going to invest $200,000 in this, but then they wire $1 million to it, or they just steal money out of the account. So there are outright frauds, and that rise to the level of criminality, and then there's just negligence, which is I'm recommending a really risky investment for you, even though you're not set for life yet. You need safe investments. You got to remember, these guys are in their 20s, and they need money to last them for the rest of their lives. And oftentimes when they're done playing their sport, they might not get a good job after that, because a lot of them left college early, didn't study too hard in college, didn't have a real major. So they need to be set for life after this. And so that's where the negligence comes in. It's not criminal, but it was negligent to recommend such a risky investment.
Well, it would seem a couple of years ago, Las Vegas would be one of the last places in the United States that a guy like you would be interested in. And now all of a sudden there's UFC, there's hockey, there's Raiders. It's also going to attract some bad people that are going to want to prey on these people as well, right?
It is. You're going to have a lot of football players here, a lot of hockey players. They're accessible. They're going to be at the nightclubs. They're going to be at the restaurants. They're going to be at the pool parties. Everyone's going to know who they are, and anybody with an idea or that wants to take advantage, they know where to find these guys. It's going to be really easy to find these guys.
So a lot of these athletes, so when they're making all their money, are they, okay, when I have like an account with a Morgan Stanley or a Merrill Lynch, I'm usually, I'm writing a check, I'm depositing in there into an account, and then if I want to put certain funds into, say, an IRA or 401k or just a regular brokerage account, I'm usually transferring the funds and signing off on the notes and moving the money. But it sounds like what you're telling me is a lot of these athletes, they have somebody who basically has a power of attorney to just move funds around. And so therefore they're telling, athlete XYZ, hey, we're going to put 200,000 into this such and such account to do this. But in reality, they're putting maybe 300 or 100 in there and 400 somewhere else and stuff. So these guys really just have no idea. And I guess most of them can't read statements because those probably get a little complicated with bills and everything. So that's kind of amazing that they get into that kind of situation.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, some guys do sign power of attorneys and they give full discretion to the advisor. Sometimes, the statements don't even go to them. Sometimes the advisors divert the statements to another address so that the client doesn't even get them. The clients are traveling a lot, so they might not get their statements that often. And yeah, unfortunately, they're so trusting that they might not read their statements at all.
And who's typically like the gatekeeper on this? Does an athlete, like a big time athlete, do they normally have like just a day-to-day manager, or is it their sports agent? Who is it that normally sort of is supposed to kind of be the eyes on the umbrella for this athlete?
So, I mean, that's the thing. The athlete, I mean, the agent, oftentimes, they're really just negotiating the contract and endorsements.
Okay.
And, then what happens is oftentimes the financial advisor will recommend the CPA. So now you don't have an independent CPA looking at your stuff. And so the financial advisor ends up with, basically full control of your finances with nobody really checking over it.
Wow.
We work with attorneys all the time, and we do a lot of personal injury work. And I always end up talking to clients, and I'll just say, it's like the little kid when they get lost. Don't wait for somebody to come and ask you, can I help you? You go seek somebody out. Never answer the phone to somebody that has an investment advice. Go and do a little Google work. Find out people that are really, really happy with their 10% return rates year in and year out. And those guys are working magic. They're working hard for it.
Yeah.
But when the phone rings, that's not necessarily when you want to bare your soul. We're talking about who looks out for these guys. The ones that in a very high profile case weren't looking out for the guys was the Players Union, and you ended up on 60 Minutes talking about it. Tell us about that case.
So that involved a guy named Jeff Rubin, who was a financial advisor in South Florida, and he was registered with the NFL union, NFLPA, as a financial advisor. And he ended up raising tens of millions of dollars for a casino in Alabama, mostly from NFL players. And gambling was illegal in Alabama. They actually built an entire casino with machines. The place got raided, it got shut down, players lost all the money. And you know, there were some red flags that surrounded this Rubin character, and you know, there were a lot of questions as to whether the union should have known and done something about it. And you know, a lot of people were upset that nothing ever happened with that.
Particularly given the NFL's position on gambling in general, just being anywhere close to gambling.
Right, right.
And to follow up on that, this Alabama so-called casino, I believe, was mainly electronic bingo and electronic keno machines and things like that, which seems like the lowest form of gambling. I mean, that's got to be the dregs of
I
the
think it was
gambling
like out in
world,
the middle
right?
of nowhere too.
Shouldn't that have raised red flags at some point?
Blue-haired people screaming out bingo.
Yeah.
Doesn't,
I mean, even if gambling was legal, I've seen the business plan, I don't think it would have worked. It was in the middle of nowhere. Their projections were like, you know, they thought people were going to come from all over, from other states to come gamble here. It just wasn't realistic at all.
Yeah, so this the Rubin guy that actually was behind it all, you mentioned that he was listed with the Players Union as a financial advisor. What does that process take to become listed like in the Players Union handbook of recommendations?
Apparently not much if they drop the ball this badly.
So back then,
And I think this guy kind of came from nowhere.
so
if I
back then,
recall.
it really didn't take much. Today, since Rubin, they've made it a bit harder. There's a fee, there's a background check. You have to have certain licenses. Today, they want you to be a certified financial planner or a chartered financial analyst. You have to have insurance up to $4 million, which, you know, if you're managing hundreds of millions of dollars, $4 million of insurance isn't really that much. But you know, it's not that much protection. For instance, there's guys in there that have, I think there's a guy in there that has 8 or 10 customer complaints on his record, and he got admitted into the program. And so, you know, they're still overly inclusive, and you know, they're trying to help the players, but it's really hard, and I think it's a little bit of a false sense of security.
Do you think with now that we have professional hockey in Las Vegas, we've got the NFL coming, do you think bringing professional sports to a city like this, does it change the industry in law and finance out here enough that we're going to start seeing a lot of attorneys labeling themselves, you know, sports athlete, you know, sports agents or financial advisors, saying that they now work with professional athletes? Or is it just, you know, a team or two coming to a city doesn't really ruffle enough feathers in the industry enough?
I think on the legal side, there is going to be an opportunity for guys to pick up some clients. You know, you have, 53 guys on the Raiders and maybe a dozen guys on the hockey team or more. And things are going to come up, you know, whether it's estate planning, wills, trusts, family law. A lot of athletes need family lawyers, occasionally a criminal lawyer. You know, there's going to be business deals that need to be reviewed. If you're a lawyer in Vegas, you know, there are going to be opportunities to work with these guys.
Interesting.
one of the things that you brought up is that you wish that you could do more of this on the front end, and that when
Yeah.
you review, you tend to review things for free for these guys.
Right.
Tell us about that. Tell us why, and what kind of things come across your desk as a result of that.
Well, look, I don't want to see a guy lose money, even though, you know, I help them and I get paid to help them recover. I'd rather, you know, not even have them as clients and make my money off regular people. So when an agent comes to me and asks me to review a deal for one of his players on the front end, I usually, you know, just do it for free. A lot of these deals that they're presented with, in 30 seconds to a minute, you can tell that it's a bad deal. It doesn't take a lot of effort, you know. I think one of the last ones they brought me was a diamond mine in Africa that it was going to pay 50% a year returns.
Well, I think I got that.
It's amazing. I think I get that in my emails.
And the
with
prince was
somebody.
locked up and he only
Yeah.
needed
Yeah.
50,000. I sent the
From
check.
the-
I still haven't heard from him.
Yeah.
Take that to the poker players.
Yeah.
They'll fall for that one.
So on that one, I tell the agent, fine, I'll talk to the guy. I talked to him. I said, look, please don't do this. Just don't do it. Trust me. It's too good to be true. It can't be real. I give him the whole speech. And then at the end, he says, okay, well, you think I should ask another lawyer?
That's funny.
You can ask,
like-
you can ask a kid.
You know what?
Yeah, I mean,
You don't have
And
to
I
ask a
can, and I
lawyer.
can say disclaimer because I know Chase really well as a good friend, but it's funny over the years of knowing him, he's always had more friends that are athletes than clients that are athletes. I mean, we'll have, I'll like be grilling at my house or something back when I lived in Miami and random professional athletes are coming into my house and stuff.
Popping
I
in.
can't even fit through the hallways, the doorwells because they're so huge. But it's funny. He's always just been more friend than like business acquaintance with a lot of them.
Well, that comes back to you. It all comes back. You treat people right, and you look to help people. What is your biggest win? Just in the heart, not necessarily money, but the thing that stands out in your mind as something you really hang your hat on a career on.
well, we had a really good win a few years ago. We went to arbitration against a really big firm, and the players had invested in a nightclub on South Beach, and a startup T-shirt company. The advisor wasn't even allowed to sell those investments, and we got basically a full win on that. And these clients were really good guys, really, really nice guys that got taken advantage of. That felt really good. This year we had a really big settlement for a music producer. He was a really good guy, and he was sold some really bad investments. So, we've had some really good wins, that we're proud of.
It's funny, isn't it? These areas that people have to struggle just to get into, much less get ahead, and then they finally get to the top of the heap, that they're completely naive to the way the rest of the world works and end up losing everything so much.
Well, yeah, we've all heard the horror stories about that over the years. Prominent athletes who end up in financial straits. So this is nothing new. This has been going on for decades and
Right.
maybe forever.
Right?
Yeah, and the Ponzi schemes just seem like they keep going on and on and on. I mean, how many episodes of American Greed do you have to watch before you realize that you can't do this stuff?
Yeah, do not talk to this guy anymore. Stop talking
Yeah, and
right
I think
now.
I watched an episode recently where the guy was he was running a Ponzi scheme, but he would also, like one of the girls would talk about how he would always watch American Greed. Like that was his favorite show, and it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. So
Dead good one.
some of these like financial advisors, they're just ruthless, just heartless individuals, and I guess they just see the money behind some of these athletes and celebrities, and it's just, they treat them like they just don't know, their head from the rear and just do what they want with their money.
The split on this is so big because these are young guys. The successful players have money and time. That would be the one thing that would guarantee their success. They've got a lot of time. If they go with a stable investment, even if they get nicked a few times with a down market, it's always going to come back if it's a real equity, if it's a real position. And to stand it on their head, like you say, some of these careers are over at 27 with no chance of ever making that kind of money ever again.
Right.
And now they've got a lifetime of nothing. It seems like such a tremendous loss in these cases.
It is. It's really sad. These guys should, either be set for life or at least have a really good base. If you in your 20s can amass $1 million and then compound that, it can double every 7 to 10 years. You could do really well, and to just lose it, especially given how hard these guys work. A lot of people don't realize when you see these articles about an athlete losing money, you look at the comments. The average person, they don't even feel bad for them.
Yeah.
But you got to realize how hard they worked and how long they worked for that. I mean, these guys bust their ass.
The broken bones, everybody
it's-
else is at home and they still got 4 hours in the gym. And
Yeah, they deserve that money.
The league doesn't do any sort of like we see corporate benefits with like 401ks, for instance, where you could put in and the the business will match up to, so many percent or anything. Do any of the leagues have any kind of incentive programs for players to invest their money or secure their money in conservative methods?
They do, but it's capped. So like the NFL, I think the 401k match is about $20,000 a year.
Okay.
And so almost every athlete, will take advantage of that. But, there's a cap. And then there's other, benefits. You get annuities and things like that. The NBA has some really good retirement benefits. But that big chunk of money you have, there's nobody, really helping you manage that.
Well, and also, it's got to be worse in sports like boxing, Olympic-style sports, tennis. The more individual sports don't even have a minimal support system to fall back on.
Yeah, Olympians just get endorsement deals. I think that's all they pretty much live on.
Right. So if you're a boxer, you only have your manager and that's it. There's no one giving you financial education.
Yeah, and I think is baseball still the only one that guarantees their salaries? Do you know?
Baseball has a lot of guaranteed contracts. Basketball, I think, has a lot of guaranteed contracts. Football is barely any guaranteed money.
Quickly back to the case that was featured on 60 Minutes. Was that exclusively NFL players involved in that investment gone wrong, or mostly NFL players?
It was mostly NFL, but speaking of boxers, I think Floyd Mayweather Jr. was an investor. And I think there might have been a basketball player in there too.
And do you personally specialize in dealing with NFL players, or do you deal with athletes from all different sports across the spectrum?
We've done all sports. We've done basketball, baseball, hockey, entertainment. But, by quantity, there's more football players out there than anything.
Right. So,
and my original connection. So we have a lot of football players.
Tell me how the whole 60 Minutes thing, how did that even come about? What was that experience?
60 Minutes was really cool. They worked on it for years. They came down multiple times, met with me, provided them, whatever documents I was able to. And, they take from you a lot of information. It's like working with the federal government on these cases. They come and they want information, but they won't really tell you anything.
Nothing back.
And then at the end, he actually tells me, I don't think we're gonna have time for you. And I said, all right, that's fine, but why don't we shoot something for the website? And we shot something for the website, and I guess it went so well, they ended up putting me on the show.
Right.
How many days was that filming it?
Oh, it was just, I was up there. We sat for probably an hour, and they probably cut it down to like 90 seconds, which is
Wow.
actually
That's way
a
long.
decent amount of airtime
Yeah.
for 60 minutes.
Yeah,
We both come from the media, so we know how that goes. An hour long.
15 seconds is a long bite.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
do the math. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know what it came
that's
out to,
a ton of
but
time.
right, anything over 15 seconds. I mean,
And your phone just probably lit up and your emails started going crazy ever since
yeah,
that?
it was cool. I didn't get any like immediate cases from it, but I probably did 3 years worth of networking in like a week. Everybody was calling me and reaching out.
It's pretty
Speaking
wild.
of which, how do people get a hold of you now? So tell us.
Twitter, I'm big on. Chase A. Carlson. My website, carlson-law.com. And yeah, that's where you'll find me.
There you are. There you are. Listen, thank you so much for joining us today. Fascinating area of law. Remember when you're coming up with law, well, it's kind of boring. I don't know, but this is just amazing.
We had to get them all the way in from Miami.
That's right. And with that, we call it a day. The Vegas Legal Magazine podcast. Sincerely thank our guest, Chase Carlson, for being part of the show. Tyler Morgan, publisher of Vegas Legal Magazine. Jeff Haney, vice president of Fiero Communications, the friendliest public relations firm in town. Remember to like and share the Vegas Legal Magazine podcast on Facebook. Also catch us on YouTube, iTunes, my personal favorite, Stitcher. And for all of you out there with a story idea, or an axe to grind, get a hold of Vegas Legal, the leading magazine in the Southern Nevada legal market. You can call Tyler at
702-222-3476.
reach out, tell us, tell your friends. Have a good one. We're out of here.